Hi, this is Ed Rising, and welcome to Ed's Pop-O-Matic podcast, a retro pop culture podcast where everything retro beats the new if you keep it in your heart. And today we're not going too retro. We're talking about an event from only last weekend, which does tie in well to retro because it was a very Beatles-themed weekend. So today I have two writers and a photographer and friend joining us today. We have Terri Whitney, we have Crain, and we have Daniel Coston joining us here today on the podcast. So I had the great pleasure last weekend of going down to Charlotte, North Carolina, my first time visiting there. And I got a chance to meet up with these authors, and Daniel and all of us have a combined relationship with Plastic EP. And that was a great deal of fun to be able to see each other in person. And of course, a lot of other people like Charles Rosenay was there, and Jude Kessler was there, so and many others. So Terri Whitney, let's start with you. Could I ask you to please tell me about some of your favorite experiences of the FabFest?
Well, that was my first year there. I'd never gone. I was really impressed with the concert, especially the second night. That was awesome with all the different genres that were playing Beatles songs and stuff, and the way the crowd responded to them. I thought it was awesome, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was really great. The band that played the first night was a Beatles cover band called Brit Beat, and they were quite good. I enjoyed them. And the second night, as Terri points out, is they had roughly 12 different artists or various versions of the groups performing and singing Beatles songs in various different interpretations, and so it was quite good. And Terri Crain, how was your experience at the FabFest?
It was great. This is my second time there. I went the first year, which I believe was 4 years ago, and then I returned again this year. And the first one was at the hotel, one of the hotels, and everything was around in there, which was great. But wow, what a venue this year at the Central Piedmont Community College. It's almost made for this festival with the different variations of places you can go around and see different things. Whether you're inside or outside, I was impressed also by when you walk outside, the other bands that were outside playing, the other things that were going on out there, the kids zone, all that stuff that was going on outside was just fantastic. And then you got to go in to see all the things that were inside and the main venues that were inside with the bands too. And then over in our area with all the authors and everything that they had over there, I thought it was a very well run machine for that weekend, which it always is, that Daniel puts together like that, and John Tosco and Tosco Music. It's a wonderful thing to be involved in and to be able to participate in. So my hat's off to everybody that was involved in it, Daniel, especially you, because I know you were right there on the clock as they opened the doors and shut the doors later on. So had a great time.
Yeah, so Daniel was at the perspective of working the event as well as being able to attend it, and he ran around with his camera around, making sure everybody got the chance to see what was going on. He led discussion groups and interviewed various people. Daniel did a fantastic job. Thank you. What was your takeaway from the event?
Thank you, and thank you guys all for being there this weekend. So full disclosure, I have been a part of this FabFest since it started. John Tosco came to me in 2018 and said, "How do you feel about doing a Beatles festival?" And I said, "I've been waiting on anything, a Beatles festival like this, that anywhere closer than New York or Chicago." So I said, I love it. Let's do it. So our first festival was in 2019. I'm obviously one of the organizers. I suggest people to John. Ultimately, it's John Tosco's festival, and he runs the Tosco Music Group. But I suggested Greg Bissonette, suggested different authors, including having Terri Crain back. And, last year we had Mickey Dolenz there. It was definitely a big wow. I really think we've settled into where this festival is going the next few years. I mean, last year I felt like the Parson at CPCC, I remember thinking that was good. I said, we're going to grow into this space. I felt like we really started to grow into it this year. And the crowds were really good. All the authors had a lot of people to, listening to them, which I really wanted. And so I also interviewed Greg Bissonette. And as usual, I was just flying by the seat of my pants. You just go and say, okay, let's go. And you just, hop on the surfboard and ride. And that's what we did. And Greg was awesome. He then played 2 songs with the band Saturday night. I believe it was 16 acts. And I think so, because I think I photographed, I know I photographed all. So
it was 8 acts in the beginning and 8 acts in the second part. I didn't do the math.
Well, after a while, it's a blur. Trust me. The whole weekend was a fun blur, and so I got to also, as mentioned, I had an exhibit of photos in Charlotte this past month. So I got to give Ed a tour. I gave Charles a tour and some other friends, and actually end up doing a 3rd tour after I dropped you off at the airport, Ed. And
that's great.
It was very cool. I really feel like we've got something special. I think people are starting to take notice. I do get a good laugh when I see that somebody we brought in is then picked up for Abbey Road on the River, or the Fest in New York, and it's like, or in Chicago. It's like, oh, they are watching us, and they are noticing what we're doing. So I had a blast. Again, it's as mentioned, I am sort of the utility player of the festival, just doing everything, but it's a fun blur. It really is. And I thank you guys all for being a part of it. And there's definitely much more to come.
Right on. Well, regarding the photography, Daniel, I'm sure we can give their credits when we eventually get towards the end of today's podcast. But just to give you a little info, folks, Daniel is a photographer, professional photographer. He does a lot of events in the Charlotte area. It isn't necessarily rock and roll oriented, but it's various different events in the area. He does a lot of rock photography. So I had the pleasure of seeing a lot of his photos of Willie Nelson and of B.B. King and of Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney and all kinds of things that he's taken, some Elton John photos. So so you did a great job with that, and I recommend you checking out Daniel's website, and that'll be in the show notes. If you check that out when you look at the podcast, it should all be there. And of course, Daniel will remind you about that later on. Next, I want to go to Terri. Terri is an author of several books. And one of his latest involves Beatles merchandise that was issued out in the early 60s during the Beatlemania era. Terri, can you tell us a little bit about your book, please?
Well, they always say an author writes a book to fill a void because they couldn't find something, so they had to find it and end up writing a book about it. Well, that's what happened to me. I'd always heard there were 150 licensed items in the U.S. Beatle merchandise from 1964 to 66, but I couldn't find the list. I thought, well, okay, I'll just keep researching and I'll put all this together and I'll make my own list. I'll find those 150, which, look at that, is what I did. So, you got it. What a cool genre to be able to get involved in, with the wacky dolls and the games and the jewelry and the Soaky dolls and all this kind of stuff. So it's just a fun thing to get to go through and find all these things. And I always emphasize on my book, people will say, well, how much was this and how much was this? And I always say, well, if you want to know the prices, do not buy my book, because nowhere in my book do I mention what the prices of anything is. I look more of the history behind it, what company made it, that kind of thing. there's wonderful price guides out there. You can go to eBay and average everything together and figure out how much things are really worth and all that. So I'm more interested in the history of those kind of things, is what my book was about. Hey, and Ed, I want to bring one thing up though, about the fest again. There's a lot of different things going on like that. And one of the cool things about that FabFest is I was in on one of the panel discussions with Daniel and all that. And, it's these little things you pick up that you didn't realize how cool things were. But I'm in this panel discussion about beetle brains and all this. So Daniel introduces this Larry Sprinkle, who everybody called the weatherman and all that, from the North Carolina area.
Right.
Well, I'm from Southern Illinois. I don't know Larry Sprinkle is the weatherman and all that. But how cool was that he started talking about when he was in the radio in the 60s and how he got involved with some of the Beatles stuff and everything, and the Stones story that he told and all that kind of stuff. And it's just, that wasn't on my radar to be able to run into something like that. But how cool is it that you get involved and that you can find things like that as these fests go along, and you never know how cool these little things are until you attend all these things and you go to everything you can at these festivals.
Really, because just like you said, you don't know who you're going to meet, and he was very entertaining. And those of you who are not familiar, Larry Sprinkles was a weatherman in the
Still
North
is.
Carolina.
Still is
He
every
still
week.
is,
Yes.
still does. But he was talking about as a teenager, 13 or 14 years old, somehow talking his way into doing a rock and roll DJ show, and somehow or other, they had time on their hands, apparently, and they gave him the show. I don't know who's running the radio station, but they managed to do this for this kid. And so he, during his Beatlemania was breaking, he's breaking their records. And one of the first people to play these records in the North Carolina area. So it was quite an amazing story. And I guess we got to find a way to reach Larry Sprinkles, because he has some really great stories. And those discussion groups that Daniel led were really very good, because we got a chance to hear from all these authors with regards to writing their book and getting more details about it, getting some background of who they are, and I particularly enjoyed the Beatles Brains group. That was like a little circling around discussion. That was a lot of fun,
I'll mention too, that was the first time we've done the circle around Beetle Brains. Usually we kind of have set up with tables, and I walked in, it was like we were all just sitting in a circle. I was like, you know what, this is it. Let's start. And it's like, why, the vibe's good, and why change it? And I'm really, really glad that we did it that way.
And didn't you hate to do that in high school? And now when we're doing it now, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. It's like, no, I'm supposed to be on stage and like listen to me. Now I'm like, I don't care. This is like, turn yourself, turn your chairs backwards. I don't care. Let's just hang and talk. Yeah,
it was good stuff. In fact, that was a great time, and I'll remember that. I looked over and everybody's going the weatherman, and I thought, here we go, and it was wonderful. I commend you, Daniel, for taking the offense on something like that and getting that going.
I love setting these things up and not knowing quite where it's going, because usually it's something cooler comes out of that.
Yeah. So
and Larry's just a joy to have. I have messages on my machine where he left me messages as John Lennon or Paul McCartney. He is, and if you look online, he was part of a huge radio station here in Charlotte in the 70s and 80s called Big Ways. And he and like a lot of different people went, like Murphy in the Morning went out to Chicago from Big Ways, but they had a great show, and Larry would do all the voices. Larry would do all the voices and characters to those shows. It's a beautiful thing, and folks in Charlotte will know that he was Sonic Man in the 70s and early 80s. I had never heard him do it in person until Beatle brains. He just started doing it. And it was literally like, I wrote a friend of mine later. It's like, I've led a full life now. I've heard Larry Sprinkle do Sonic Man. It was, it was wonderful.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, one of my new friends that I met at the Fab Fest is Terri Whitney. And Terri, you were telling me before the show that you've written one book and you're writing the second book. Could you please tell us about that book, please?
The first book I wrote was about the Beatles, and it's called Any Rhyme at All. And it's all written in poetry form. And each poem has its own hand-drawn illustration that goes with it.
Wow.
Cool.
So yeah, and the second book is Music Legends in the Heavens, and that's 50 of the iconic musicians that have passed away. And it's based on the same thing, poetry, and then hand-drawn illustrations of each one of the musicians.
So I would imagine that a lot of this is emotional, an emotional response to these artists who have been touched your life and of course have now unfortunately passed away. Can you tell us some of those that are most close to your heart?
Pardon?
Could you tell us which ones are most close to your heart?
John, as far as the Beatles go, is the most closest for me. I've been a big fan of his since about the age of 9, actually. So yeah. And as far as other musicians go, I would have to say probably Elvis Presley.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, and you're talking
I
about
can-
writing I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
I had a teacher when I was in grade school that actually got me interested in doing that. I was an only child, and she says to me, she said, the nice thing about writing poetry is you can write about anything. She said, you can look out the window and pick something out and write about it. So you can write it about anything, and that's the best way to put the way you feel in words, So
Yeah.
I started about the age of 9, same time I liked the Beatles, and I've been writing ever since.
And have you kept a lot of your poems through the years, or they've gone through the way life goes?
Yeah, I have personal poems of my own that have not been published yet. Yes.
Well,
Quite
see,
a
that's
few,
good
actually.
because if you keep that, then you have a record, if you will, of your life. Because
Yep.
this is what I was feeling in 1973. This is what I was feeling in 1982, 87, 96, 2000 and 2001. So it's good to be able to hold
Yep.
on to that, and that's what makes
Yep.
songwriting so such an interesting art, and poetry is such beautiful art. And I
Yeah.
commend you. That's great if you can do that. And we'll have to look for your book. What is it again? What's the name of the
Any-
2 books?
Any Rhyme at All is the Beatle one, and then Music Legends in the Heavens.
Okay. And do you have a website?
Yes, I do. It's called therockandrhymer.com.
Very good. Very good. And one of the things I wanted to bring up regarding the Fab Fest that I was most impressed with was the community. I was very impressed with John Tosca, who was the main organizer. Would that be right, Daniel?
He is the founder. He basically founded these music parties in his house.
Mhm.
The first music party is coming up on 40 years ago, and it started from this house to small venues, and now fills the Night Theater, which was just about sold out on Saturday
Yeah.
night. And everybody feels like they know John and the Tosca people personally. I think that comes off.
That came across
emotion.
so well in that
Yeah.
concert.
Yeah.
Because everybody seemed to enjoy him playing guitar with them, and just being master of ceremonies, and just having a little fun with his grandkids there,
Mhm.
as well. I mean, it was very cute. But just the way that people seem to interact with each other on stage, the number of different groups of type of people that I imagine he was integral in putting together. I guess through these Tosca music nights.
Yep.
It's quite an amazing thing, you know, it really is. And so I was very glad that I was able to witness that. In fact, I thought that maybe towards the end of that concert, and they were going to throw a Gatorade bucket on him. Because it was like, you know, like you do in the Super Bowl, you
Yeah.
throw the Gatorade bucket, you know.
Yeah.
Here's this guy, he did this incredible thing, and you know, he deserved that. So that was kind of
We've thought about it, but I'm friends with the sound people and they wouldn't like that. So we haven't done that yet. So
and then
you know.
cleaning it up.
yeah, that's heck to take off a stage. I'm trying to tell you that. So but yeah, I mean Tosco has these concerts 4 or 5 times a year, including a holiday show, but obviously the big weekend now is the Beatles Festival. John is a lifelong Beatles fan, and over the years we've had the first year we had Peter Asher in the Circle. I had to take 2020 off, and then we came back in 2021 with Joey Mullen, which was amazing. The event is someone will remember 2021. It was kind of do we do this again? Do we not? And that year we pulled that whole festival off in 6 weeks.
And Joey Mullen, for those of you who don't know, Joey Mullen was from the Apple band Badfinger.
Badfinger, yeah, and I actually interviewed him live on stage,
sure.
and that was a real joy. And I've got a video of that, and that was just so much fun. Then last year we were able to land Mickey Dolenz. We brought the Circle back, and we're definitely keeping our eyes and ears open for who we want to bring in the future. But yeah, definitely it's a night of community. It's a bunch of, and as these concerts have come back in the last year and a half, I think a lot of people will appreciate that community a little more. It's like, you know, it's a lot of good times out with friends and friends that we didn't get to see for a long time. In fact, John did a series of online concerts during the pandemic just to keep the community going, even if it was just through our computers. So yeah, I definitely, coming out of the 2+ years of what we all went through, I definitely enjoy these things just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Charles Rosenay is trying to join in, so let's see if we can get him in here.
Oh dear.
Let's see if he can join in.
He's on it.
Here he comes.
Walking down the street.
Hey, Charles. Guess the funniest looks from everyone we meet. It's Charles Rosenay.
He's trying. He's trying to hit that last button to get to get in.
Oh, he's connecting
Here
to audio.
He's connecting. He's coming.
Don't you live Zoom? Yes. Hey there, Charles.
Hey, Charles.
Hi guys,
Hey, Charles. How
There
you
it is.
doing, buddy?
how we doing?
We're good.
Great. So so we're talking about the Fab Fest, and we had such a good
It
weekend.
was so much fun. Such a great time, especially hanging with you guys. That made it special.
I've told people it was the largest collection or largest gathering of veterans/survivors of the Plastic EP program. So we share a common bond with that experience.
The survivors, I like that.
Give credit where credit's due. You know, he created quite the whack pack, and we're part of it, and we're honored to be that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So wanted to ask, hold on, I just want to check out something here now. That's not what I want to do.
Charles, I'm glad I could finally get you to the festival. You've been on my radar for a while, so I'm really glad you got to enjoy it.
Thank you so much. No, you made it happen, Dave. Thank you so much for your hospitality and for all the behind the scenes you do for that event. It's amazing.
Thank you. It's, like I said, it's ultimately it's John's festival, but I'm really glad to be a part of it. And I think people are starting to figure out who I am and what I do. So that's nice too. It's always, again, we were just discussing before you came on, after what we went through for a couple of years, and can we do this festival? Can we not do this festival? It's like, I definitely appreciate this a little more. And this past weekend was definitely a very fun blur.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I love being with you guys. And I have to run, but I couldn't let you guys do a show without me saying hello and telling you how much I love you all.
Charles,
Thank you so much.
Charles Real Fast is the author of the top 10 Beatles lists book. Could you give us a quick promo on your book, please, Charles? And if you don't do it,
Yeah,
I'll do
it's
it.
64 celebrities gave their top 10 favorite lists regarding the Beatles. It's available on Amazon or at www.book-of-top-10-Beatles-lists.com. And if I stay another minute, my family will kill me.
Here
I
it
love
is,
you
yeah.
guys, and I gotta go. Okay, take
Okay,
care.
so thank you, Charles.
Thank
Hey,
you for the
Charles.
Take
plug.
care now.
See you, man.
Bye-bye
Talk to
now.
you soon.
Bye, everyone.
There's his book right here, Charles.
Bye.
The Book of Top 10 Beatles Lists by Charles Rosenay. And so, yeah, so this is great. This is fun. And again, I want to just kind of go around the group there and everybody give their name and the contact. And if you have a book or a website, please share that with the audience. Terri Whitney, would you like to start off, please?
Yes, like I said, my books are any rhyme at all. And I have a website that's www.therockandrhymer.com. And you can order through there. I will also have a Facebook page that has a shop now button that'll bring you right straight to the website.
And you also have a book about rock and roll in heaven. What's it called
Right,
again?
the Music Legends in the Heavens is the
Music-
second book, correct?
Music
And
Legends in
that
Heavens.
you can also get at that website.
Very cool. And Terri Crain?
My book is in the second edition now. NIMS in the business of selling Beatles merchandise in the US, 64 to 66. I would go to the fabgear.company, FABGEAR.company, not company. And I've got my books out there and stuff like that. Real quick, I'm working on my other book is coming out. It's called Copywriting the Beatles, 1952 to 66. And if you think there were wacky things out there about the merchandise and all that, I'm going through the Library of Congress and I'm listing all the Beatles or Beatles related copyrights from those years. And I'm already over 900. I thought there was a couple hundred. Well, I'm over 900 now and I'm finding more every day. But
That's
you talk
amazing.
about a wacky world to enter. So I'll get more on that in just a few weeks, Ed.
Terri, one more thing. When I was looking at your book, which is incredible. I mean, what's nice about it is, in fact, if you can just show us a few pictures, just going through it, it's almost like a coffee table type book.
Yeah.
Because if you go through it, you're going to see reproductions of all of these merchandise, all this merchandise that was issued during the Beatlemania era. And it's just so much fun to look at.
Well,
And so I got a real kick out of looking at it.
Yeah, and one of the things you got to remember though is these are not reproductions. I was nice to go to, well, the images are reproductions, but I was fortunate to be able to go to collectors' houses and shoot images of their stuff and everything.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother show to talk about going into places like that where you think, well, he's got a couple things, like I got a couple things on the shelf here. Well, when you got to go into some collectors' houses and they take you down their basement, which the entire thing is like that, and there's shelves like Walmart that you go down there, and it's just unbelievable. One of my favorite images is the dolls right there, all lined up. The ones that went on top, the cake toppers, the ones that were like the 8 or 9 inches and the 15 inches. That's one of my favorite. So you go through the book, and I was fortunate to be able to find these things and to shoot images of them. And it's just what a world that it was at that time to go through and to find all this stuff.
Incredible. And one of the things that I did, I made the big mistake because during the FabFest, there was also a collector's area. And of course, the collector's area is next to the marketplace.
Yeah.
So I thought these items that were displayed beautifully, some of these were on sale, were for sale. You know, what the hell? And I'm looking at these beautiful figurines and Beatles record players and all kinds of things. I'm thinking, wow, I'm looking at $29.99. I'm thinking that can't possibly be the price.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, just trying to be cool and trying not to be stupid. You know, said, how much would it be if I wanted these Beatles bobbleheads? You know,
Yeah.
and the guy's looking at me like I got 3 heads. What do you mean it's for sale? It's not for sale. Beatles not for sale. So yeah, but it was very cool to see all this stuff displayed.
Yeah.
And then Daniel, can you give us a little bit about yourself, please?
Well,
Condensed version.
Yes, yeah, I'm Daniel Coston. I just don't know where to stop. So as for my books, you can search my name, Daniel Coston, on Amazon. You can also go to fortcanogapress.com. That's the imprint that I created for a lot of my books. I have 6 books out there, including a book on the rock and roll scene of North Carolina during the 1960s, as well as a book about the music of North Carolina that McFarlane released in 2013. As mentioned, I photograph for everybody, both here and elsewhere. You can see both the music work and the event photography at danielcoston.com. You can go to Instagram at Daniel Coston Photos. My event site is danielcoston.photoreflect.com. And there is else, I would recommend Daniel Coston music photos from my music photos archive. I will mention too, I am working on a couple more books. I have a book done on Maurice Williams that hopefully he and I can finish in the near future. And then I have an essay book about my weird life as a music photographer that I need to finish and get that story out there. And there's always a few more things in the works. I'll mention too that we have the Circle's new album be out next year on Big Stir Records, bigstirrecords.com. Singles coming out September 8th. Stay tuned. And then hopefully I'll have news very soon about a Left Bank record that I recently found and have been working on getting released. So as always, I'm Daniel Coston. I'll see you on the road.
That's fantastic. You're the hardest working man in show business. Let me tell
Thank
you.
you.
Fantastic stuff.
James Brown left a large void, and I'm here to do what I can to do my part.
Exactly.
My name is Ed Rising, and you guys can find me on my YouTube channel, brand new YouTube channel. You can find all the videos from the Pop-O-Matic retro pop culture, whatever it's called, pop culture podcast. And you can do that, or you can check me out on Facebook. You could email me at erising4@aol.com. I'm always enjoying discussing music and retro stuff and pop culture things. And so thank you for tuning in today and tonight or whenever. And I thank my guests, Terri Whitney, Terri Crain, and my friend Daniel Coston for joining us today as we discuss the FabFest from North Carolina 2023. Everybody, good night. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you all. Thank you.
Log out.